I found out she was planning to leave the state 2 days before Christmas. Not because she told me, not because she asked, but because our 8-year-old daughter whispered it to me while tying her shoes in the hallway, her voice trembling with the thrill of a secret she didn't understand the weight of. "Mommy says we're going on a trip," she said. "Like far, like snow and mountains and a cabin, but she said not to tell you yet." The shoelaces hung loose in her hands. My pulse hammered. Not to tell me yet. I stood there frozen, the morning light spilling across the floor between us like a thin, cold line. The kind that separates what you think you know from the truth you were never meant to find. "Did she say when?" I asked carefully. "Tomorrow night," she said, "after we pack the presents. Tomorrow night." I felt something inside me lurch violently, the kind of drop you feel when a plane hits turbulence. Except this wasn't turbulence. This was free fall. When my daughter ran ahead to get her backpack, I leaned my forehead against the wall and tried to breathe. Legally, she couldn't take them out of state without my consent. She knew that. She had fought me on holidays before, pushed the boundaries, manipulated schedules. But she had never attempted something this reckless. Or maybe she had. Maybe I just hadn't caught her before. And now I had to decide. Confront her, risk escalating things, or wait and watch her try to take my children away in the dark. We exchanged custody that evening in the parking lot of a quiet supermarket. Our routines had become rehearsed since the divorce. She parked in the same spot, stepped out with the same clipped posture, offered the same forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. But that night, she looked different. Tense, alert, almost jittery. "Everything okay?" I asked, watching her too closely. "Fine," she said too quickly. "Just holiday stress." Holiday stress, right. The kids ran to her, their backpacks bouncing, and she hugged them with exaggerated energy, laughing aloud at their stories, the kind of laughter people use to cover guilt. She didn't bring up the trip. She didn't ask permission. She didn't hint at anything. But when she closed the trunk, I saw 2 large duffel bags already inside. Packed, ready. She hadn't even waited. "I'm picking them up on the 26th, she said, "as we planned." "Yes," I replied, my voice calm even as my jaw tightened. "As we planned." She froze for half a second, just long enough to betray fear. Then she nodded and drove off. I stood there as her car disappeared down the street, trying to silence the rising panic. If she left the state with them, even for a holiday, even for a week, she would set a precedent. And knowing her, she would push it further next time, and further after that, until my time, my rights, my presence in my children's lives dissolved inch by inch. This wasn't just a Christmas trip, it was a test. A quiet, calculated attempt to see how far she could go. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with my phone, scrolling through old messages, old court documents, old warnings from my lawyer that I'd never wanted to believe. Around 3 a.m., I got a text from her. "Big plans for Christmas. Kids are excited. Hope you won't make this difficult." Not asking, not informing, just declaring. She wanted me to feel cornered, guilty, selfish for refusing. She wanted to paint me as the obstacle. But my kids weren't bargaining chips, and I wasn't going to let her use them that way. The next morning, I drove to her apartment early under the excuse of dropping off a forgotten jacket. When she opened the door, she looked startled, as if she'd already been mentally halfway out of the state. Suitcases stacked by the hallway, kids' coats laid out, a cooler packed with snacks, travel pillows, and on the kitchen counter a map of the neighboring state with a route highlighted in red. She hadn't even tried to hide it. "Are you planning to take them across the border?" I asked quietly. She stiffened. "Don't start. That's not an answer." She took a breath, set her jaw. "It's Christmas. They deserve a trip. My family is there this year, and am not missing it because of you. You're required to get my consent." She folded her arms. "And you're required to be reasonable." I looked at the map, then at her. "In not letting you take them," I said. "Not like this. Not without talking. Not without a plan. Not without agreeing together." Her face didn't fall. It hardened. "You're controlling," she hissed. "You always have been." "No," I said. "I'm a parent." She took a step toward me. "And what do you think the kids will remember? That mommy wanted to give them a magical Christmas and daddy ruined it. That's not what I'm doing." "It's what it looks like," she said. "And I won't cover for you." For a moment, the room felt very small. The kind of small that crushes. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I didn't storm out. I simply took out my phone, opened the custody agreement, and placed it on the counter for her to read. Her expression shifted. Defiance cracked into a sneeze. "You would call the police?" she whispered. "If you force me," I said, "to protect the kids." She looked away first. The suitcases stayed by the wall until January. Christmas ended up quiet that year. No cabins, no road trips, no extended family visits. Just my kids, a small tree, extra marshmallows in their hot chocolate, and a blanket fort that took over half the living room. They never asked why plans changed. She didn't tell them. I didn't either. Some battles don't belong to children. She still hasn't forgiven me. Sometimes I think she never will. But my kids were safe. They stayed home. I didn't lose them to a moment of her impulse or fear or spite. And if holding that boundary makes me the villain in her version of the story, then so be it. At least I didn't let them disappear across a state line into a holiday built on secrets. The days after Christmas were strangely quiet. Not calm, not resolved, just quiet in that heavy way that makes you feel like the air is holding its breath. She didn't text, she didn't call, she didn't ask how the kids' holiday went, which told me one thing: she was planning something. And sure enough, on December 29th, I got the email. Not a message, not a conversation request, an email. Formal, cold, stripped of emotion the way only anger can be when it's sharpened into strategy. She wrote that I had interfered with her parental autonomy, that I had unreasonably denied the children access to their maternal extended family, and that she would be seeking a modification of the custody agreement in light of my inflexibility. The words hit harder than threats ever could because they weren't emotional. They were intentional. My lawyer called it exactly what it was: a retaliation. She's trying to punish you for stopping the trip, he said. Don't respond emotionally. Document everything. So I did. Every message, every exchange, every time she arrived late or avoided communication. But documentation didn't stop the dread, because suddenly it wasn't about a Christmas trip anymore. It was about something much bigger. Her trying to rewrite the narrative of our entire co-parenting dynamic. In her story, I was the obstacle. I was the controlling one. I was the one ruining holidays. And she was going to build her case around that until it looked convincing. New Year's Eve, the kids were with me. They fell asleep early, curled up in a pile of blankets on the sofa. I watched them breathe in the glow of the TV, their hair messy, their hands tucked under their cheeks. I thought about how close I'd come to losing them for who knows how long. An out-of-state trip could easily have turned into extended holiday stays, then well, they're already here. Let's just finish the school break. Then something worse. I didn't know if she intended that, but the fact she didn't feel the need to tell me that was enough. Around 11 p.m., I heard a soft knock at the door. Not pounding, not urgent, a slow, testing knock. I froze for a second before opening it. She stood on the other side, wearing a coat thrown hastily over pajamas and no makeup. Her eyes were red, not from crying, from anger held inside too long. "I want to talk," she said. "It's late. It's important." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so the kids wouldn't wake. "What is it?" I asked. She crossed her arms. "You humiliated me. That's not what happened. You made me look unstable. You planned to break a legal agreement." Her eyes flashed. "It was one holiday. It was across state lines. You always exaggerate," she said, voice rising even though she tried to keep it down. "You always think you know better. You act like I'm a threat." I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was complicated. I didn't think she was a threat to them. I thought she was a threat to stability, to boundaries, to the structure our kids needed. "I'm not trying to take them from you," I said, "but I need to know they're safe. I need you to communicate." She shook her head slowly. "I can't talk to you. You twist everything. You make me feel like I'm failing. I'm not doing that. You are." Her voice broke, not from sadness, but from exhaustion. "Every time I want something, you fight me. I feel trapped by your rules." I exhaled. "They're not my rules. They're the court's. That's the problem." She snapped. "You hide behind the court to control me." The accusation hit like a slap. Unexpected, stinging, and unfair. She wasn't looking for understanding. She was looking for justification. "You know what?" she whispered. "I will file for modification. I deserve the ability to travel with my own children. I deserve freedom." "Freedom doesn't mean disappearing with them," I said quietly. "I wasn't disappearing," she hissed. "Then why keep it secret?" The question hung between us, sharp and undeniable. Her mouth opened, then closed. She didn't have an answer. Or she had one she she didn't want to admit. "I'm their mother," she said finally. "I shouldn't have to ask for permission to take them somewhere special." "It's not permission," I said. "It's cooperation." She stared at me with something that wasn't anger anymore. Something darker, something wounded and stubborn. "You'll regret this," she said softly. "You think you're protecting them, but you're just pushing me further away. Maybe distance is what we need," I said. Her eyes flickered, hurt, fear, fury all at once. Then she turned and walked down the hallway, her steps echoing harshly against the walls. I stood there long after she left, not triumphant, not relieved, just painfully aware of one thing. This wasn't over, not even close. The following weeks were a test of endurance. She became unpredictable. Some days overly cooperative, responding quickly, agreeing to everything, smiling brightly during handoffs. Other days cold and curt, refusing even the simplest coordination. I learned to read the signs. The clipped tone meant she was planning something. The sugary politeness meant she was preparing a narrative. The delays meant she was gathering leverage. And then, one afternoon in February, during a routine pickup, she said something that shifted everything. "We're going to court," she said calmly while buckling our daughter into the car. "I filed the paperwork this morning." She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't need to. I felt the ground tilt beneath my feet. "What exactly are you asking for?" I forced out. "Travel flexibility," she said lightly. "Holiday rights, ability to visit family out of state. The judge will understand." "And more time?" I asked. She closed the door slowly, then turned to me. Her expression was unreadable. "I'm their mother," she said. "I deserve more than alternating weeks." It wasn't an answer, which meant it was the answer. She wanted leverage. She wanted power. She wanted to win. And I realized with a bitter, sinking certainty that she wasn't fighting for the kids. She was fighting for control. The court date was set for late March. 2 months, too long, careful, draining months during which every interaction with her felt like walking through a field, covered in thin ice. You never knew which step would crack something open. She became precise in everything she did. Not calmer, not kinder, just calculating. Every pickup happened exactly on time. Every conversation was short but polite. Every message was free of emotion but full of subtle traps. The kind of phrasing that could later be printed, highlighted, and handed to a judge. "Just checking that you're okay with the kids missing dinner tonight since they're tired. I would appreciate more flexibility for spontaneous family plans. I hope co-parenting can be more cooperative in the future." I responded carefully, documented everything, never raised my voice, never took the bait. But the tension pressed down day after day, and beneath the diplomacy, something darker was growing. Not anger at her, not fear of losing, something more complicated. The exhaustion of constantly being forced to prove I was a good father. Every minute, every decision, every holiday, every inconvenient truth. The week before our hearing, she behaved differently. It was subtle at first, too subtle. She started sending long messages about how much the kids missed their extended family, even though they'd seen them twice that month. She talked about memories she wanted them to have, about cultural traditions they were being denied. Then she escalated. She began telling the kids about the upcoming trip she wanted to take, as if it was already approved, as if the judge had already signed the order. They came home talking about snow-covered cabins, cousins they'd barely met, sledding hills, baby deer they'd feed, holiday lights and music, and Mom says it'll be the best Christmas ever. It was March, 3 months after Christmas. She was planting the seed early. I wanted to scream, not at them, never at them, at her, at the manipulation, at the way she weaponized dreams. But I didn't. I sat with them, listened patiently, and said only, "Well, see, we always decide things together." They didn't understand the weight of that. They weren't meant to, but she did, and she hated it. The night before the hearing, I barely slept. Instead, I reread every file my lawyer had prepared. Recordings of her refusing communication, screenshots of messages, a calendar of inconsistent exchanges, notes about last-minute cancellations, documentation of the Christmas secret plans. My lawyer's final words stuck to me like cold dew. "Be calm tomorrow. Speak clearly. Stick to facts, not feelings. Judges punish panic." But of course, I felt panic anyway. If she changed the arrangement, even slightly, if she got travel permissions, if she skewed the narrative, if she manipulated the judge into believing I was unreasonable, it would alter everything for years. Custody orders don't change easily, and once they do, they rarely go back. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, not dramatic, not cinematic. Just a quiet beige box with heavy chairs, dusty flags, and a judge with tired eyes who had probably seen 100 families like ours. She came in wearing a light blue blouse and minimal makeup, her hair neatly tied back. She looked put together, fragile in a way that invited sympathy from strangers, and confident in a way that frightened me. She didn't look at me, not once. Her lawyer spoke first, presenting her case with polished calm. She simply wants the ability to visit family. She wants the children to experience holiday traditions. She is not trying to remove the father from their lives. She is seeking flexibility, not dominance. My heart pounded. The judge nodded. Her lawyer continued. The father has repeatedly denied reasonable requests, creating unnecessary conflict and limiting the children's opportunities for meaningful family connections. The first blow landed. The second, the third. I watched strangers write down summaries of my parenting, like they were listing ingredients in a recipe. Then it was my turn. My lawyer presented the facts, not the embellished fears, not assumptions about motivation, just the facts, dates, times, screenshots, patterns of secrecy, evidence that she planned an out-of-state trip without informing me. The judge's eyebrows rose slightly at that. Her lawyer jumped up. She wasn't planning to disappear. She wasn't planning to tell him. My lawyer cut in. Which is the exact issue. A quiet ripple spread through the room. She shifted in her seat, her hands tightening in her lap. Then the judge asked her the question that mattered. Why didn't you tell him about the trip? Her breath caught. I was going to. When? The judge pressed. She hesitated. Silence stretched. Her lawyer gently placed a hand on her arm, but even that didn't save her. She finally whispered, I knew he'd say no. The judge leaned back. And why did you believe he'd say no? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her eyes darted to me, then away. Because, she finally said, he always does. The judge tapped a pen on the desk. Always, or when the request goes against the custody order. Her face flushed. I just wanted a nice holiday. And you intended to drive the children out of state without informing their father. She didn't answer. The silence spoke for her. The judge turned to me. Do you object to travel in general, or only to travel without mutual consent? Only without consent, I said. I never want to prevent them from experiencing holidays. I just want decisions to be made together. The judge nodded. My chest loosened slightly. After an hour of back and forth testimony and questioning, the judge gave the ruling. It was firm, clear, and devastating for her. Travel permissions would not be expanded. The original custody order would remain. Any out-of-state trips required written consent from both parents. Any attempt to circumvent this could trigger legal consequences. Her shoulders collapsed inward when she uttered those words. For the first time, she looked at me, not with rage, not with hatred, but with something raw, like she had been stripped of the story she'd told herself for months. She didn't approach me afterward. She gathered her papers quietly, wiped her cheeks with a trembling hand, and disappeared down the hallway without a word. But the fallout wasn't over. Later that evening, I got a message from her. The first real one in months. Not angry, not manipulative, not formal, just a single line. Do you hate me now? I stared at it, my stomach tight, because no matter what had happened, no matter the damage, the battle, the fear, the truth was simple. I didn't hate her. I hated what she was becoming. I hated what the conflict was turning both of us into. I hated the way everything we once shared was splintering into court orders and accusations. But hate, no. So I typed, no, I don't hate you. I just need us to do better. For them, she didn't reply. But I knew she read it. Because a minute later, her status changed from online to last seen recently, as if she couldn't bring herself to stay in the space where the truth existed. By the next morning, the snow had thickened. Big, slow flakes drifted down like ashes, and the whole neighborhood looked muted under their weight. The air felt heavy, the kind of cold that got into your bones. I stood by the kitchen window, watching the empty street while the coffee maker rattled behind me. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my ex. We need to talk, please. No threats this time. No accusations. Just that. But I didn't answer. Not immediately. I needed a moment one she'd never allowed me before. I took my time making breakfast for the kids. I tried to keep things normal. Scrambled eggs, toast, hot chocolate dusted with cinnamon the way they liked. but even they sensed the tension beneath the surface. Is Mommy still mad? Lily asked quietly, her voice too small for her age. She's upset, I said, but adults get upset sometimes. What matters is that you're safe and you're here. Did we do something wrong? Ben asked. No, I said firmly. You didn't do anything wrong. This is between the grown-ups. Their shoulders relaxed a little, but the worry didn't completely fade. Later, once they were busy building a Lego fort in the living room, I finally messaged my ex back. We can talk on the phone. No visits today. She called within 10 seconds. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I heard her breathing unsteady, like she'd been crying. I don't know what else to do, she said. You're shutting me out. In protecting our kids, I replied. You made your decision when you told them they'd spend Christmas with you in another state, like it was already settled. She exhaled shakily. I wasn't trying to take them from you. I just wanted one holiday to feel normal. My family will be there. I haven't seen them in 2 years. You could have asked, I said. But you didn't. You demanded. And you know the custody agreement. Silence. Then. I thought you'd give me the benefit of the doubt. I leaned against the counter, feeling the weight of the entire year pressing between my shoulder blades. She was talking quieter now, softer, like she was exhausted. Then her tone shifted, not manipulative, not confrontational, just tired. Do you hate me? She asked. The question hit harder than I expected. No, I said. I don't hate you. I'm frustrated, and am done letting things happen without boundaries. That's it. She sniffed lightly, not dramatic, just real. I didn't know how badly I messed up, she murmured. I should have asked. I should have talked to you like a normal human being instead of a storm. That's all I ever needed, I said. A conversation, not an ambush. Another pause. Can we meet somewhere neutral? She asked eventually. Not to fight, just to actually talk about what Christmas is going to look like. I hesitated, thinking of the kids, thinking of her earlier outburst, thinking of how I'd been pushed too many times before. Tomorrow morning, I said, at the cough by the courthouse. Public, quiet, safe. She didn't argue, didn't push, just whispered, okay. I hung up before the conversation could unravel again. The rest of the day was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of calm that feels temporary, like the eve of a storm rather than peace. The kids asked if they would see their mother soon. I told them probably tomorrow and left it at that. But that evening, after they went to bed, I found myself sitting in the dark living room, staring at the faint glow of Christmas lights reflecting on the window. And for the first time all week, the question I'd shoved aside finally surfaced. Was I doing the right thing? Was I really protecting them, or was I holding too tightly out of fear of losing them? I didn't have an answer, not yet. But I knew tomorrow would bring one step closer to clarity. One way or another. The snow kept falling outside, covering the world in a cold, untouched white. And I sat there in the dark, listening to the quiet, waiting for the storm to shift. The next morning, the sky was a washed-out gray, the kind that makes everything feel suspended. I left the kids with my sister and drove to the car. My ex was already there, sitting by the window with her hands wrapped around a paper cup she wasn't drinking from. She looked up when I walked in, not angry, not defensive, just tired. I sat across from her. For a while, neither of us spoke. The quiet between us wasn't hostile, just fragile. Finally, she said, I reread the custody agreement last night. That surprised me. She'd always acted like legal documents were beneath her, like emotion should matter more. And I asked, and you're right, she said. I can't take them out of state for Christmas. Not without your permission. I don't want to pretend that I didn't know that. I just hoped you'd say yes if I pushed hard enough. It wasn't the pushing, I replied. It was telling them before telling me. She nodded, her eyes drifting down to the table. I was thinking about my parents. I wasn't thinking about you, or the kids. The admission, honest and simple, moved something inside me. Not forgiveness, just the recognition that she was finally speaking without the shield of anger. I don't want to fight anymore, she said. I really don't. But I don't want to spend Christmas alone either. You won't, I said. You can see them. Well, make time. Christmas Eve, the morning, something that follows the rules but still lets you be with them. She looked up, hesitant. You'd really keep it flexible? As long as it's in state, I said. And safe. And you don't use them as leverage. She winced, and I could tell she knew exactly what I was referring to. All the times she'd tried to bend the rules with emotion instead of reason. I won't, she whispered. There was a long pause, the kind where both people know the next words will define what comes next. I'm not your enemy, I said, and you're not mine. We just have to stop treating each other like threats. She blinked rapidly, fighting the emotion rising behind her eyes. When she finally steadied herself, she nodded. Okay, she said. Christmas in state. It'll work with you, not against you. For the first time in months, her voice didn't sound like a fuse waiting to ignite. We talked through the details, times, locations, how to keep the kids comfortable. It wasn't warm, not the way things used to be, but it was civil, clear, adult. When we stepped outside, the cold air wrapped around us like something cleansing. She paused by her car. For what it's worth, I'm glad you didn't just let me do whatever I wanted. Boundaries make you a better parent, and a better person than I was being. I'm trying, I said. You're doing better than trying. She got into her car. I watched her drive away, not with fear this time, not with resentment, but with a quiet hope that maybe we could finally build something stable for our kids, even if it wasn't a relationship anymore. When I returned home, the kids ran up to me, asking how the talk went. It went well, I said, and you'll see Mom soon. Their relief was immediate and unfiltered. Later that night, after they were asleep, I stood by the window again. The snow had stopped. The sky had cleared, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like the storm between us had finally started to break.